With the Karl Anthony Towns trade and Mitchell Robinson injury, it begs the question, who is the next big man to step up to the plate? All that and much more on the Knicks Digest. What's up, guys? It's your boy, Dariel. Mitchell Robinson is going to be out until 2025, so we're looking at a January, February return date. Precious Achiuwa just strained his hamstring in the last preseason game, so he's going to be out a couple weeks. Probably not going to see him until, the 15th game of the season. So right now, backing up Cat, we got Jericho Sims. Right now, he's the first big man coming off the bench. And then behind Jericho Sims, we got Ariel Hukporti. Now, when Precious Achiuwa is healthy, Precious is going to be the first big man coming off the bench. Precious Achiuwa is a seasoned veteran by this point. He has a lot of experience. I mean, he's an NBA player, so there's that. You guys know how I feel about Precious. I actually I'm not a huge fan of him. I fully expect us to trade him, especially after signing that one-year contract. I definitely think we're going to involve him in the trade package for whatever player we're targeting. But it just, as of late, watching Jericho Sims get those minutes in the season opener against the Boston Celtics and then on Friday against the Indiana Pacers, Chris brought up the topic and Matt agreed with him. It's like, why not start Hukporti at this point? Because Precious is out with a hamstring injury, and Jericho Sims, I mean, I like Jericho Sims, and I want to ride for my guy, but Jericho Sims, we're not seeing any sort of development. It's Jericho Sims just running out there, setting screens, rolling to the basket, finishing alley-oop plays, cleaning up the glass, hustle plays, diving on the floor. And of course, you do need that. You need that person on every team to facilitate that role. But me personally, I just want all of my players. If I'm a coach, I just want all my players to be able to put the ball in the bucket. That's a prerequisite if you're going to play on my team. You need to be able to put the ball in the bucket. If putting the ball on the floor is your strong suit, if shooting is your strong suit, perfect. Free throw, I don't care. You need to be able to put the ball in the bucket. And especially in today's landscape, shooting is definitely the number one skill that you guys need. And Jericho Sims is not able to do that. You don't throw the ball into the post for Jericho Sims to make a move. Precious Achiuwa, at least he's a kind of decent shooter, which brings me to Ariel Hukporti. Hukporti, the highlights that I've seen of him, he played in the Australian League. I played for a team, Melbourne United, I believe. And the highlights that I've seen of him, man, they were impressive. First of all, he's a southpaw, so that's going to be an advantage right off rip. And then I've seen him do post-up moves. I've seen him do a reverse pivot. I've seen him do an up and under. I've seen him put the ball on the floor. I've seen him clean up the glass, run the floor. Ariel Hukporti, in the limited amount of highlights that I've seen, has already kind of proven to me that we should just even try Hukporti, the first man off the bench, tomorrow against Cleveland. I'm absolutely not comparing the two players, but from the few highlights that I've seen from Hukporti, I was getting some Amari Stoudemire type vibes. And what I mean by that is pick and roll finishes. And a couple examples that I can point towards is in the preseason. It might have been in the last preseason game against the Charlotte Hornets, or one of the preseason games where Hukporti set a screen and then he rolled and he threw it down on somebody. And that was just typical Amari Stoudemire. That's what he lived off of. That's what he thrived off of with Steve Nash. Now, again, I'm not comparing the two players because Hukporti is still super young, super raw. And Amari Stoudemire, if he didn't have all those injuries, then I think he would have been a for sure Hall of Famer. I mean, he might still get in because the Hall of Fame is a little bit of a joke right now. But past the Hall of Fame, Amari Stoudemire might be looked at as one of the better power forwards of all time, but injuries just completely derailed his career. But going back to Hukporti, so if we have Cat starting at the 5, and we all know Cat's offensive abilities, Cat goes to the bench, Hukporti comes in for him. Hukporti, we're going to be able to throw the ball into the post to him because he has some offensive game. And then on top of that, Hukporti setting the screen, he can roll, he can finish at the rim strong, we've seen. And Hukporti, like I said earlier, the whole southpaw situation, which already throws defenders off. So I just think Hukporti is a different look. And Coach Tibbs, I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world if you just threw him out there. Of course, there's not a lot that I can go off of with Hukporti, this being his first season. I don't have the numbers to compare it to Jericho Sims and Precious Achiuwa. If we're basing it off numbers, Precious and Jericho are going to win off rip. So Hukporti I can't really defend that. But again, if we're going off of eye talent, which is what I go off of, I know in today's NBA media landscape, or whatever you want to call it, statistics and analytics is one of the biggest things people use to make their argument. And I understand that, but I'm more of an old school guy, so I rely on the eye test. And from what I've seen, Ariel Hukporti, I don't think it's a bad idea to just try him out as the first big man off the bench as of right now, because Precious is going to be out for maybe another week or two with that hamstring injury. Jericho Sims is going to give you the same thing he's been giving you since we've seen him last season. So what's the worst that can happen if we get Hukporti out there? Hukporti might actually even surprise you, Tibbs. So throw him out there and let's see what can happen. But as far as numbers, I mean, take a look here. Last season, we see Jericho Sims play 45 games, started 11 of those games, averaging a bucket, 3.3 rebounds, 0.6 assists. Field goals, he 0.8 on 1.2 field goal attempts, which equates to 69.1%. The season prior to that, looking at 3.4 points. His rookie season, 2021, 2022, we're looking at a bucket and 2.2. Like, there's not really a lot there with Jericho Sims that I can look at. All of those points, like, he's not putting the ball on the deck. He's not creating his own shot. Like, they're off of rebounds or they're alley-oop plays. There's not really much there with Jericho Sims that I can just build upon. Now, if we're looking at the other big man, Precious Achiuwa. Last season, 7.6 points, 6.6 rebounds, 1.3 assists, played in the 74 games. Field goals, he made 3.2 out of 6.3 field goal attempts, which equates to 50%. Three-pointers, he made 0.4 out of 1.3 three-point attempts, which equates to 26.8. That is absolutely abysmal. And another key point about Precious Achiuwa that I should bring up is he can't catch the ball. Precious Achiuwa, time and time again, someone is driving down the lane. If it's Brunson, Kolek, Mikal Bridges. Last season, if it was Dante, Josh Hart going down the lane and then just laying it up for Precious Achiuwa just to finish a bunny, and Precious can't catch the ball. So I'm not a big fan of Precious. Yes, like I said earlier, he's an NBA veteran at this point, but I think Precious, no. Just no. That's my answer to Precious. No. As far as right now, between Precious, Ariel, and Jericho Sims, yeah, Precious is probably the best option, but I only think he's the best option because we haven't really given Hukporti a respectable chance. And again, why not just throw Hukporti out there for being the first big man off the bench, especially with Precious being out with this injury? I think this is a perfect opportunity for Coach Tibbs to try that out. The next 5 games, I know tomorrow or whenever this comes out, we're going to be playing Cleveland. I know Detroit's in there. I know Atlanta's in there. The other 2 teams I forgot, but it's still the early part of the season. I think Coach Tibbs, I think this would be a really good opportunity to throw Hukporti out there, just see what he can do. And from the highlights that I've seen, like I said earlier, he has a little bit more of an offensive game than definitely Jericho Sims. There's no question about that. Between Precious and him, I mean, Precious can stretch the floor with the three-pointer, so you might give that nod to Precious, especially in today's NBA landscape. So the offensive skills between the two, you might lean towards Precious. But again, Hukporti, I just like what I saw, and I think we should really give him a chance to see what he can do. And one last note before I wrap up the video, Chris and I, we talked one of the post-game shows for one of the preseason games, and I think Chris brought it up, or I brought it up, regarding Jericho Sims and his development. Specifically, this past summer, he was putting up Instagram reels, and he was putting up stuff on his Twitter, showing us that he was working with Mike Bibby on his fadeaway jump shots. And I'm going to say what I said then. Like, all of that is well and dandy, but is Coach Tibbs going to be able to, is he actually going to let you do that in a game? I think if Jericho Sims pulls that in a game, Coach Tibbs is going to yank him out right away. So what you've been working on, are you going to be able to use that in a game? And then time and time again, you hear all these ex-players going on podcasts talking about, like, okay, you're working hard on the offseason, but are you working hard in the offense that's going to be run for the team that you're playing? So Jericho Sims working on those fadeaway jumpers, like, that's great, but are you actually going to be in a position in the season, in the game, to actually use it? And I don't think he is. And then on top of that, like, I don't even know if Jericho Sims is going to be, I don't think he's, like, crazy enough to try it out. Because I think he knows that if he tries out in the game, Coach Tibbs is going to yank him out. So what you've been working on in the summer, like what are you doing? Work on stuff that you're actually going to be being able to use in the season. Now, before Matt and Chris brought it up on that live stream on Friday about Hukporti being the first big man off the bench, I was absolutely against it because Jericho Sims, he's put in the time, he's put in the work. So I believe Jericho Sims earned that right. And in the early part of the season, if I was Coach Tibbs, I would just throw everything at the wall to see what I have. And then from there, then start to put the team together, knowing exactly what everybody's strong suits are. And then we'll be able to move forward with a plan. It's going to be interesting to see how the season plays out. There are questions regarding Cat. There are questions regarding the depth in the bench, between guards, between bigs. We can't forget about Coach Tibbs. There's just a lot of different storylines. There's a lot of different things that we can take a look at. And it's going to be interesting to see where this team ends up in by the time the playoffs come around. But guys, I want to say thank you so much for checking out this video. Leave it in the comments and let me know what you think about the idea of trying out Hukporti as a first big man off the bench. Let me know what you guys think of the idea of when Precious comes back healthy, still putting Hukporti as the first big man off the bench, backing up Cat. But until next time, you guys know the drill, you know the vibes. Jalen Brunson for the MVP. The deuce is loose. Mikal Bridges for Defensive Player of the Year. Taj Gibson for President. And you guys know the vibes. Until next time, I'll check you out later. Peace.